Good morning, everybody. Okay, thank you for turning up this morning. It's welcome KMA's Coronavirus business support catch up, if you like. I appreciate everybody joining. I know we've got a number of people on the line, as it were, today. If you have any questions, obviously a number of people have given me questions to answer, and I will obviously go through that. If you have any questions, if you could use the Q&A session here, and then I will go and check those and answer them as it happens. So for anyone who's just joining, thank you very much for giving up your Saturday morning. I have a number of questions that have already been asked. If you've got any questions, just put them in the Q&A box, and they'll take priority over the questions that I've already had. I will obviously look to try and give you a bit of an update. It is a bit of a moving feast at the moment, as you can appreciate. Everything is constantly changing. And I'm sure that will, continue for the next few days. Got any questions? Please stick them in the Q&A, and I will have a look at what I wanted to kind of give you an update on is effectively the latest thinking and information relating to owner-managed businesses. There's obviously directors of limited companies. That is dear to a lot of our hearts. Obviously the furlough and that situation, so if you employ staff, the help that's available in terms of, we'll cover off things like the rates grants, the time to pay, VAT, deferment and corporation tax. And actually we had a question on the timings for the VAT and the corporation tax payments. Okay, so for anyone who has the 5th of March to the end of June, you can, if you wish, defer your payment. You don't have to. It is not a holiday, it's not a grant, it is a deferment, so it does have to be paid, and it has to be paid before the end of the 1st of March 2021. So basically, you're just deferring this by effectively, 6 to 9 months. So you would have to pay it within the current tax year. So if cash flow is an issue to you, you may want to defer that and use the cash flow to keep your business afloat. If you've got the money and you just rather pay it, then obviously that is your choice. If you don't want to pay it and you want to defer it, then obviously you need to cancel your direct debit. Otherwise, there is a chance that it could be taken. For those people who just joined us, if you can put your any questions that you've got in the Q&A, and I will answer those. So that's what's happening with VAT. As I say, it is a deferment, it is not a grant. Corporation tax payments, again, you have the option of the government's time to pay. In our business survival kit, we put the phone number in there. If anyone's not got that, if you want to drop me an email to kim@KMA Accountancy.co.uk, and I will get that out to you. All of our clients should have had that by now. In there is the phone. But basically, you have the option to ask for time to pay for your corporation tax or any other tax for that matter, like your VAT or your PAYE. So if you haven't got the cash flow and you need the cash, then obviously probably the best thing for you to do is to ring up the helpline and ask for a deferment time to pay. And they, HMRC will look at that on a case-by-case basis. We understand that they are being extremely accommodating. There will obviously be a big demand for it, so there'll be a lot of people who are picking up the phone and talking to them. So, it may take you a while to get through, but obviously just keep trying. Clearly, at the moment, HMRC, like everybody else, are all working from home, and there will be a lot of people that are self-isolating and potentially not well with the coronavirus. So obviously short staff. Boris Johnson has got mild symptoms, so everybody is suffering right now. So that's the situation on that. But as I say, there is the ability to ask for time to pay, get a period and agree a monthly amount with HMRC. In terms of clearly a big issue that we've been asked a lot on this week has been the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme, otherwise known as furloughing your staff. I think there's a lot of misconceptions here. People are thinking it's your given right to do this. Effectively, it's for employers who would otherwise have to make their staff redundant. Obviously, the government doesn't want hundreds of people to be made redundant, so they've brought this in. You leave your employees on the payroll, you furlough them, you're kind of laying them off. The government grant, it is a grant, it is taxable because you've had the cash in tax, it's tax neutral to you, it will be treated as income from the government. So you will get a government grant if you employ staff and you furlough them of up to 80% of the salary who would otherwise have been laid off. This is £2,500 a month for each furloughed worker, okay, or 80% of their salary. Now, this does include employer gross, and the employee receives their net pay, so obviously the employees' national insurance and tax is taken off that, and obviously at some point that will be paid over to HMRC, depending on how you get the grant, and obviously that's all at the moment still up for debate. It has not been put through as full legislation at the moment, so therefore it's not gone through the House of Lords. We're still waiting to see exactly how it will work. We believe that this information will be put into a government portal. The government, we assume, will pay directly, or for employers who have big PAYE and tax bills, then obviously it'll be a reduction against that. I don't think that's the case for most of our clients, to be fair. But basically, the government will pay, as we say, £2,500 or 80%, plus the employer's national insurance contributions, auto enrolment payments. So that's new this week. As I say, it's continually sort of changing. There are some rules and regs. For example, you have to refer back to, you can't just furlough somebody and go, that's it, you've done it. You have to have a conversation with them. It is outside of accountancy, it is employment law. So you do need to speak to your employment lawyer or your HR specialist and make sure you understand the implications. We understand, but as I say, we are not HR or employment law specialists, so you do need to take advice. We understand that if you have a layoff clause in your contract, you may be okay, but obviously you are going to have to be very, very careful, because potentially you lay yourself open to litigation later. You've got to be careful you don't effectively choose your friends to furlough over your existing work, some of the workers, and then get into a discrimination or unfair situation. And you do need to, as I say, you either have to have something in your employment contract that allows you to lay people off, or you need to complete a form with your employees. Now, obviously the pragmatic side of me says, and I was listening to a very senior employment barrister the other day. Now, as I say, the information keeps changing daily from the government. What we thought was happening on Tuesday, changed again on Thursday. But his slant on this was you need to have a conversation, and you basically say, well, look, there is no work for you. You can't do your job from home. Therefore, ordinarily, I would make you redundant. Ultimately, I don't want to do that. So we have this other option where we furlough you and sign here. So, words to that effect. As I say, that was his sort of slant on it. But the top and bottom of it is you do need something in writing, we believe, but you need to speak to your HR specialist to make sure you are covered and you don't lay yourself open to litigation later. Questions around this, like, can people, for example, do a bit of work for you? The answer on this is, unfortunately, absolutely not. If you are furloughing your staff, then they are not allowed to make any money for the employer, and they're not allowed to provide services to the employer. So it changed on Thursday, and now you are allowed to volunteer, subject to public health guidance. And that's not with your employer necessarily. That's with the cat's home or whatever. But when you're working for your employer, when you're furloughed, you can actually do some training. So you can complete training courses. That is all that you can do whilst you're working for your employer, as it were, if you are furloughed. Subject that they must be paid at least the national minimum wage or the national living wage if they are doing some training with you. So it depends on what your employment contract is. They cannot go part-time and then be furloughed for the rest. It's all or nothing. And we were led to believe before Thursday that you had to furlough and that was it. You probably couldn't bring them back in and out. It now looks, again, it's all guidance. It's not, until we see the legislation, we don't know for certain. If you're furloughing somebody, you have to furlough them for a minimum period of 3 weeks. After that, you could bring them back in and they could do some work for you. And then we believe you could furlough them again. But as I say, until we get the legislation, we don't know that for certain. Okay, keep questions coming for me and I will get to them and answer them. So that brings us nicely into a question on owner-managed businesses. I've been asked on that, what happens to, where you've perhaps got a husband and wife business owner. Now, at the moment, there is no concrete guidance. The official line is you cannot furlough a director because a director has certain legal obligations. There is, I suppose, a little bit of doubt, and obviously Martin Lewis and various other people have been discussing this. As you probably know, there is a petition going around to the government to get them to look at this. Obviously we've had Rishi Sunak saying, we can't save every business owner and every business. There's a lot of names have gone into that petition, so whether that will happen, who knows, we'll just have to wait and see. There's a lot of kind of interpretation. As I say, with the directors at the moment, the official line is no, you cannot film an owner-manage of a business. We will just have to wait for the legislation. There is obviously the option to possibly say, well, maybe you could furlough one of the directors, but you cannot do any work whatsoever whilst you are furloughed, and that would be the same for a director as it is for an employee. So if you were furloughed, you would not be able to make any money and you would not be able to provide any services. So somebody else would have to do the bookkeeping and paying suppliers, social media, all of that kind of stuff. And HMRC will be looking at this very closely afterwards, because whichever way you cut it, if you are still doing work, but you are in receipt of the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme, otherwise known as furlough payments, you're breaking the law. It's fraud. You would have to be aware of that. You can't do any work. You would have to sit at home. Now, as a business owner, you have to weigh up, is it worth taking the risk of putting your business in a worse position because you have, most directors of owner-managed businesses take a very low salary, let's say £700-800 a month. Is it worth doing nothing for for 80% of your salary and sitting at home and as I say, doing absolutely nothing? And therefore your business is in a worse position because you could actually be working on the strategy of the business, working on the sales and marketing, doing stuff on social media, during the downtime period of effectively working from home and isolating at home. That obviously has to sit with the director. You would have to have one director in the business anyway, so you couldn't do it for both directors. And we believe that, as I say, HMRC will look at this very, very closely afterwards. You know, again, if you've got husband and wives on the payroll, the husband furloughs his wife, he said, you know, I don't need the duties that she was doing for me done, then obviously HMRC potentially, you know, several months down the line could turn around and say, well, if you didn't need her during that period, why do you need her now? Lots and lots of interpretation, but it is a very, very difficult area that is open to abuse and will, no doubt about it, be looked at by HMRC at some point very, very closely. And you have to ask yourself the question, is it worth it for 80% of £700 or £800 a month? Can I earn more than that by working hard on my business and then hitting the ground running when we're out of this in, you know, 2 to 3 months' time? You know, answers the question as it stands at the moment. Apologies, but there is just not the guidance out there, and so it is all speculation. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see. Just had a question from Dale saying, do you think they will allow directors to claim that eventually? Dale, as I was saying, I don't know if you were here when I was saying that obviously there is the petition, there is a lot of pressure on the government. Don't know. I really don't know. I think, you know, maybe there will be a lot of pressure and you know, maybe he'll back down on it. But I really don't. I don't know. It's how long is a piece of string, unfortunately. I think what you need to do as a manager of an owner business, you know, is to look at what other help you need. The first point of look at what are the expenses of the business, what are my personal expenses. You know, obviously there is the potential to get a payment holiday on your mortgage to see you through. Equally, if you have a business that you have a premises, then clearly there is some support there, and we'll look at that. Options are looking at the Coronavirus business interruption loan scheme, and we'll talk about that a little bit a bit later. Furloughing, that's the situation at the moment. As I say, it's not gone through you know, the legislation, but at the moment it is all the other offer of help at the moment, if you have employees or strictly speaking directors, is the statutory sick pay. So if you have somebody who has got the symptoms and is self-isolating, then you don't have to wait the waiting period. Effectively, they can claim statutory sick pay from day one. So you are allowed to claim statutory sick pay for 2 weeks. There are no waiting days, and that will be refunded by the government. Normally it isn't, but it is only 2 weeks. So if you had somebody that was going into hospital because of coronavirus, and, you know, ultimately it is only reimbursed by the government for 2 weeks. After that, obviously it would be normal statutory sick pay, and obviously that would be paid for by the employer. And for business owners, which is on the rates. So if you have a premises, you can claim, if you are in receipt of small business rates relief, then you can claim the £10,000 grant. That is to effectively fund the cost of those premises for the next 3 months. Hospitality, leisure and nursery businesses, then you will have a 12 months rates holiday. Equally, you can, again, if you are in the retail, hospitality, leisure businesses with properties with a rateable value of between 15,000 and 51,000, you will get some grant funding of £25,000. This has to be paid by you and not your landlord, but basically your local council, wherever you live in the country, will sort those payments out and get them to you. We believe Trafford, for example, have got a portal open where you can apply online. obviously, we've been told that all councils will effectively send that payment to you. So obviously, if you pay normally by direct debit, it will probably go back into your bank. If you pay other means, they'll probably send you a cheque. We're not sure for certain right now, but it is coming. We are aware that, again, it depends how quickly the councils are, and again, because everyone's working from home and people are self-isolating due to the symptoms, then it does depend on staff members. I think, as we all know, pretty much everybody is struggling right now with people, especially as we get, further into this, and more and more people unfortunately become ill. So that's the situation on the rates. There, as we've already talked about, we've got the time to pay, both VAT, PAYE, corporation tax, the VAT deferral period. The other help that is available at the moment is the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme. It is a loan, it is not a grant. You do have to apply for it. It is backed by the British Business Bank, but it is accessed by your own bank, so in the first instance. Now, again, this went live on Monday. There is all kinds of speculation going on, differing terms and conditions. We've heard some people where it appears to have gone through relatively easily. We've heard some banks where they have had to go into massive sort of lending criteria, so they've had to produce a business plan and cash flow forecasts. We've even heard some banks where they've got the offer in principle and then they've said you've got to do the cash flow afterwards. So, the only advice we can give you really is to obviously go and speak to your bank, find out what they need, and then obviously contact us if you need some help putting together that cash flow or whatever the criteria is. We've heard initially that banks weren't being particularly keen to lend, shall we say, the scheme, where, whilst the government have said that they will back the scheme and guarantee it up to 80%, the bank can't guarantee it, then we're the backstop position. So obviously, banks are not too keen on losing money. Government intervention will come about. Who knows? We heard this week that Barclays at the beginning of the week were saying they wanted a personal guarantee, and then by the end of the week it was, well, as long as it's less than a 250,000 loan, we won't want a personal guarantee. Again, it depends on the individual bank. We've heard, and you will have heard in the news and on the various channels, that it is 12 months interest-free. Now, whilst it's interest-free in the first 12 months, that is the case. We've heard, again, differing reports as to whether it's capital repayment holiday for 6 months or it's repayable from day one. So there are payments that will have to be made. It depends on the individual bank. It may be capital from day one, it may be capital from month 6. But interest won't actually be paid until the following year. So obviously, if you had the money and paid it off within 12 months, you wouldn't be charged any interest. So again, it is a loan. It does require payment back. Obviously, all of these measures are intended only to be used because of the coronavirus issue. And they are intended as emergency measures to help you survive as a business. They're not intended to be used, just because you want some free money. The choice is yours with the loan scheme, whether you want to take it up or not. Completely down to you, but it does have to be paid back. And the different banks have got differing rules. There are 40 banks available. You can find more information on the British Bank website. I have information in our business survival toolkit. It is in there. We've also put together a coronavirus job retention scheme, and also there is one on the government help for the self-employed and frequently asked questions that obviously only was released on Thursday night. We'll get to that one in a moment. So that's pretty much kind of all the help that is available at the moment. Obviously, there are, we are hearing that if you can't afford to pay your rent and you have a commercial premises, the government has said you will not be evicted for the first 3 months. Now, clearly, the government is not paying the rent. You will have to pay it back, but I'm guessing that will be down to the individual landlord and the relationship you have. What I would say is clearly when you are going through our survival checklist, have a look at what you can do. If there is anybody that you can have a conversation with, it will all help you to stay in business. Everybody is in the same situation, clearly. It is quite difficult. I've just had a question from Hannah asking how we calculate the month's pay when employees have worked part of the month and have been furloughed for the rest of the month. Hannah, the situation is that you, obviously this is only probably going to happen in March. If your workers were employed at the 28th of February and then at some point during March you furloughed them, you effectively pay them their normal pay for the period until you furloughed them, and then from there it's a kind of pro rata effectively. So if we're dealing with the payroll, we'll take care of all of that for you. The pay slip will need to have the normal gross pay and then a furlough pay, show them how the pay is put together. So, it will still be, for the furloughed period, it will still be 80%, including the employer's national insurance and auto-enrolment, but it will all be prorated effectively. We are sending out, if you haven't got it already, it'll be coming out imminently, a spreadsheet for our clients to capture that information, because clearly we will need to have that information, because at the moment the portal is not built, and that will be built, we believe, by the end of April, and then we'll need to obviously upload this information into the portal. If we are your payroll provider, then obviously we will do that. So that's why it's important that we capture all of that information and have a record of it. I'm sure HMRC will look at it. Whether they'll look at it in great detail, who knows? But clearly they will be looking to make sure if people have worked during the period. So they'll be looking on social media. So again, as an employer, you absolutely have to make sure that you tell your staff that they cannot work for you. They can do training, but that's it. They can't work for you. As we've already said, the definition is they can't make money for the employer and they can't provide services. If they do, they are not eligible. Therefore, you will not be able to claim that furlough grant. The emphasis will be on you, the employer, for stating, effectively putting your neck on the line that you haven't. If it then came to light that your employees had been working, then effectively they could force, they could and probably will force you to repay that, and they will possibly charge you penalties and interest, because again it's in breach of a benefit, therefore it's strictly speaking classed as fraud. So you must make it absolutely clear to your employees that they are furloughed and are not allowed to do any work. On variable pay, it's looking at the 12 months and averaging it out, or looking at the same period 12 months earlier and effectively comparing the two on that. So to the 80%, it's the amount you earned in the same month last year, or the average of your monthly earnings of the last year. So that's how you deal with somebody who's on variable pay. So hopefully that answers the question. Okay, I'm just going to talk now about the government help for the self-employed. This clearly only kind of came to light on Thursday. So the idea behind this is somebody that is a sole trader or a partnership. It is not entitled, at the moment for directors of limited companies. If you are a director of your own limited company, i.e. you are the owner and the manager, then you are classed as an employee. And as we've already discussed, at the moment, the rules are very unclear as to whether you can furlough. Certainly as a sole director of a managed business, as it currently stands, it is not possible. Yes, the Chancellor, released his report on Thursday, and it is based on taxable profits in the 3 years to April 2019, and you'll receive 80% of your average monthly earnings over that period, up to 2,500. So very similar to, employees being furloughed. Initially, it's 3 months. Obviously, the Chancellor has said that he will extend it if we need to, and it's going to be paid in June. Now, obviously, June is a long time away. The reason for that is because they are trying to put together this portal for employed staff, and they just don't have the manpower to do it. Clearly, that doesn't help you if you need cash right now, and you are self-employed. So the recommendation clearly coming out from the government is, use that VAT money and that deferment. Also, if you have a payment on account to make in July, at the end of July, then obviously the government has said they won't be taking those payments in July. They will extend that and expect you now to pay that in the 31st of January 2021. So again, you've got an extra 6 months to get your tax together, if you like. So they're suggesting that you use those monies right now to survive. If you don't have either and you have no means, then clearly you can apply for universal credit. Equally, again, it's all unclear, but we believe that if you qualify for the self-employment help, you haven't got any money right now, then you need to ask for an advancement, which will effectively come from universal credit, but we assume that they will equalise them out and, ultimately sort it that way, so you effectively get an advanced payment. Whether that's going to happen, I'll be honest, who knows? It is all up in the air at the moment. A difficult period for everybody. As the self-employed, you will not have to apply for this, we believe, at the moment. What will happen is the government, HMRC, will send, either set up some kind of online form or will send you a form that you have to complete. They will look at whether you are eligible, and they will obviously do that from their systems, looking at your tax returns, and it will be based on the fact, did you submit a 2018, 2019 tax return? All of our clients, obviously have submitted their tax returns. So, if you are eligible, they will be writing out to you. For people on the call that are not our clients, if you are in this self-employed bracket and you didn't submit a tax return, then, you need to do that quickly within the next 4 weeks. HMRC, we believe, will deal with this claim form late May, early June, and obviously the money will come from them. You will only be eligible if your taxable profits are 50,000 or less, and it will be averaged over the 3 years to the 5th of April 2019. We've had questions clearly about people who have gone from a sole trader to a limited company. Again, unfortunately, the rules say that you have to still be trading, or would have been trading if it wasn't for coronavirus. You know, you had to trade through self-employment, and continue to be trading now. So though, unfortunately, that does exclude a lot of business owners who have gone to a limited company. Also, anyone who started trading after the 5th of April 2019, unfortunately, you can't claim either. See, lots of people are feeling hard done by. There are lots of measures out there, but it's not going to cover everybody. And as I say, I can't comment about whether you know, the owner-managed business situation will change. Hopefully that will get clarified over the next couple of days. There's been a lot of unhelpful discussions. I mean, on Sky News, for example, you know, somebody who was an employment lawyer basically said, "Oh yes, you can furlough, you know, a single director when it's just you working in your business." Well, obviously, you know, the guidance on that has been very clear that, you know, you have legal duties and that's not possible. So a lot of confusion. I think we've just got to, you know, kind of just hang fire and just keep going and try and remain positive, access what you can, and ultimately just keep going and building your business so that it becomes stronger at the end of this. I've had a question from Dale that said, Kim, did you say Barclays don't ask for a guarantee on the interruption loans? Dale, again, I can't say for certain. We've heard that up to 250,000, they won't ask for a personal guarantee. That doesn't mean that they will. They still have the right to ask for cash flows and information, and potentially, obviously, dependent on say whether they want to lend or not. They're supposed to lend, but it is only for their own customers right now. So you do have to apply through your own banks. If you're with Barclays, you would hope that they would look more favourably on you. But, you know, ultimately, you know, in answer, we just don't know whether they will completely say yes to everybody. It is supposedly for businesses that are sound and have a real chance of surviving and would not be in this position if it wasn't for coronavirus. We have heard clearly that the money is only for the purposes of allowing you to survive because of coronavirus, and you will have to put that in your application, not that you know, you want to buy a premises somewhere. You know, again, one of my colleagues in a group that I belong to, mastermind group, did actually have one of his clients whose coach had told them to take advantage of the free money and go and buy another business. Isn't in the spirit of it. We're in unprecedented times, and, you know, nobody would like to be in this position, but obviously we're all, you know, we are all in this together. We're all in the same position. We're all, you know, wondering what's going to happen, what the world's going to look like afterwards. Clearly, the Chancellor has hinted that he's going to equalise the tax system. Again, nobody knows exactly what that looks like. He hasn't been drawn on that. Obviously, if you are self-employed, you do pay less for tax on your profits than if you were a business. Now, you know, so the speculation there is that he may increase that. Of course, equally, as a self-employed person, you don't have the same rights to like statutory sick pay, etc. So, you know, who knows what he means and what it's all going to look like afterwards. Clearly, there's a lot of speculation about, will corporation tax rates go up? Again, who knows? But, you know, you have to think that we are still in a transition period for Brexit, believe it or not. Who'd have thought it? It was all that we ever heard of, and now we don't hear about it at all. Transition period, we are supposed to be negotiating a trade deal by the end of the year. and clearly, you know, we are going to have to be attractive to investors to come and invest in our UK businesses. So, you know, again, will corporation tax go up? Who knows? There will be clearly a lot of pressure on the government to think all of these things through. That's pretty much it on all of the announcements. If said before, we have put together a help sheet for the self-employed and what's available to them. Obviously, we're at version 3 of the COVID-19 Business Survival Toolkit, which has pretty much an overview of everything. We've got a Coronavirus job retention scheme, frequently asked questions, and as I've just said, the government help for the self-employed with the frequently asked questions. So if you'd like any of those and you haven't got it, then please drop me an email to kim@kmaaccountancy.co.uk. As I've said, all of our clients should have had that. Answered all of the questions. That if anyone's got anything else, then please do stick it in the Q&A. Questions that I had previously, I think we've kind of answered all of those. I was asked, and he'd finished an employee on the 31st of March and was due to start a new career on the 1st of April as a director. What do I do next? As it currently states, I'm not quite sure whether you meant whether he meant that he was going to be a director of an owner-managed business. Well, obviously we've done that one to death. Clearly, if he's a director of another business and he's employed, then obviously he unfortunately doesn't count, because you had to be employed at the 28th of February. So you would have to look at your personal position, your personal savings, look at a more holiday, etc. And so unless anyone's got any further questions, in terms of, we had one other question about kind of furloughing and paying staff. The Coronavirus job retention scheme that the government announced to help your employees, giving you the ability to furlough them if it was necessary as a result of coronavirus. It is your responsibility to make sure, as I've said, that your employment contracts, you know, cover you, that you've got stuff in place, because, you know, you must take advice on that before you do anything. And then from there, very much down to you to continue to pay. I mean, the government is assuming that you have the money anyway in March to pay your staff, and they'll have the portal up and running effectively to pay you from April. Now, we don't know yet. Again, there's no legislation on this. It's all going to come through in time for the April payments or not. But in essence, they're still your employees. You're responsible for paying them, and then you get the grant to reimburse you. This is why it's probably a good idea to try and conserve your cash as much as possible. So if you do have a VAT payment, it's one of the reasons that they've given you this ability to push your VAT payments back, to use that to help your cash flow in the short term. So that helps. Obviously, we have got the KMA WhatsApp group, and please do invite other business owners. Whilst it was set up initially, you know, with clients in mind, it is there for, you know, to just try and help people as much as we can during this period. There's a lot of uncertainty, you know, and there's a lot of worry out there, and obviously all of us kind of pulling together to help will get us. Parting comment, I would definitely say the businesses that will do the best out of this situation are the ones that remain positive. Okay, I know it's easier said than done, but remain positive and just, you know, think about your business and really look at what you can do to put it in the best position to fly at the end of this. So I'm not necessarily saying do your marketing right now, but what I am saying, and you know, I put this in the email that I sent out to yesterday, is very much think about what marketing pillars work for you. What is the message that you're trying to get out there? You know, look at your products and services, get your pillars set up, ready to go. You know, is there a way that you can be helpful to your audience right now, which will all mean that you become what we call a thought leader? So, you know, and Joe Wicks is the classic example of that. You know, he's become the hero because he's launched all of these free online, you know, YouTube videos of how to keep yourself fit. Now, you know, he's not doing it purely to help people. I'm sure there's an element of that, don't get me wrong, but he's doing that to ultimately make a name for himself. So he will be the go-to person at the end of this, that when he puts out their offers, and it might be an online course, or it might be to come to one of his classes or franchises if that's what he does. Oh yeah, he was great because he did this for us. You know, just think about swiping and deploying in your business. You know, what could you do right now that's going to help your market and make you stand out above all the others that you do, and be known as, yeah, they were really helpful, I'm going to go to them. You know, what goes around comes around, as they say. So just, you know, get out there, be helpful to your market, you know, build those relationships, keep those relationships going. They want to do some stuff on Facebook, whatever it is, you know, I'm not necessarily saying, you know, sell. You may have a lower product, because at the end of the day, there will be a lot of people at home. And, you know, whilst a lot of people will really be struggling, there will be, you know, a number of people out there who have still got money and will still buy stuff because they can't get out to the shops. So they'll be on social media looking at what's there. You know, they may give you some money, who knows? But you can certainly be building your brand, you know, building your business. Rather, you know, it's much better to be positive moving forward than it is to just bury your head in the sand. You know, I'm sure you can create some assets, create some marketing, build relationships. You know, even, you know, if you're in the building trade, for example, you know, there must be tenders out there. There must be people that you can speak to keep those relationships going, so that they remember you above all else when this is all over. Because, you know, collaborating and helping each other, we come out of this stronger and better businesses. So I've not had any more questions, so I will leave it there. It does remain for me to say, if anyone needs anything, you know where we are. You've got our numbers, email addresses, etc. You know, reach out. We'll do what we absolutely can, and we will have, you know, further webinars like this, and obviously post stuff in the WhatsApp group. So I hope you found that useful. I'll let you get. Not that you can really go anywhere. I was just saying to my husband this morning, the highlight of my week is going food shopping. Who'd have thought it 6 months ago, hey? But got to remain positive, haven't you? So have a fabulous weekend. You know, sunshine is shining. So go out there, a good one, and then you know, thinking and planning and moving your business forward, because that is what will help put that cash flow. Look at what's coming in, what's going out, what, you know, bridge that gap in the short term. Any of the help sheets, just drop me an email and I'll get that out to you. But very much. Bye for now.